Much like other companies, DC Comics has had its fair share of controversies going around. But some are easier to forget than others, and along with Marvel, DC Comics is one of the most successful and iconic comic book publishers of all times. The publisher is known for introducing some of the most iconic comic book character of all time, including Superman, Batman, and of course Wonder Woman. But with that being said, as DC Comics has been around for more than 85 years, the company has certainly been on the receiving end of some controversies during its time. Hey guys, it is Tristan with Nerdette's Newsstand, and today we are going to talk about the top 10 controversies in DC's history. Number 10, Superman kills the Joker. The Joker was one of the first victims of Superman's rise to power. He drugged the Man of Steel, convinced him that his pregnant wife Lois was the villain Doomsday. Killing her triggered a nuclear bomb that destroyed Metropolis. Now Superman returned to the prison where the Joker was being interrogated by Batman. Superman then shoved his entire forearm through the laughing Joker's belly, and then ripped out his heart, killing him. Superman then continues to murder criminals, growing more corrupt over the next 5 years. He ultimately becomes a ruthless dictator, forms a One Earth regiment, rules over Earth alongside other heroes and villains, whom he recruits as lieutenants. Those who oppose him, such as Batman, established the insurgency, resulting in a war between the two factions that leaves the Justice League completely disbanded. This was originally written for Injustice Gods Among Us, but became so popular as a video game, it spawned a comic from DC by Tom Taylor and by Brian Bersolito, and illustrated by former artists such as Mike S. Miller and Bruno Redondo. It was released digitally by DC Comics from January 2013 to September 2016, resulting in a massive 153 digital issues, a second game, and multiple spin-off titles, including the most recent prequel, Year Zero. Number 9, Batawing. If you picked up a physical copy of writer Brian Azzarello and artist Lee Mayhew's Batman DM #1, then you were treated to a passing glimpse of a totally nude Bruce Wayne in the Batcave. From the sound of it, DC regretted greenlighting that decision to show off Batman's penis. Immediately, it was edited on Comixology, and the issues were told to be returned. A shadow edit in the digital version. If you were lucky enough to get one, then you definitely have something that's gone up quite a bit in value. Number 8, Harley Quinn's Bathtub fiasco. In September 2017, backlash erupted around a contest that DC Comics was running to draw a page of Harley Quinn #0. Written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner, the issue is drawn by 16 different artists, including some legends in the field and one talented contest winner who produced a page of art based on 4-panel script by Conner and Palmiotti. But the outgoing rage and the onpouring rage came when panel number 4 was released, because it read, Harley sitting naked in her bathtub with toasters, blow dryers, blenders, appliances all dangling above a bathtub, and she has a cord that will release them all. We are watching the moment before the inevitable death. Her expression is one of, oh well, guess that's it for me. And then she's resigned herself in the moment, and it is going to happen. To add insult to injury, DC Comics announced this contest on September 5th, just 3 days before the start of National Suicide Prevention Week. Both fans and the suicide prevention group spoke out against this event. Eventually, both Palmiotti and DC Comics apologized, not realizing the severity of their mistake, and apologized to anyone who may have found this page synopsis offensive or for clearly not providing the entire context of the scene without the full scope of the story. Number 7, The Killing Joke. In 1988, writer Alan Moore, who is now a Hall of Fame comic book creator, and artist Brian Bullen published The Killing Joke, one of the most iconic and controversial one-offs of all time. The story is wrapped around the struggle between Batman and the Joker and the limits of a man's morality. The Joker has pushed, cranked, prodded, threatened, and assaulted, both physically and psychologically, Batman to the point where there is nothing holding him back from killing the Joker. The ending, in all of its ambiguity, doesn't have a clear answer, sparking endless conversations since the day it was published. In the book, Barbara Gordon, daughter of Police Commissioner James Gordon, is Batgirl. During a confrontation with the Joker, he shoots and paralyzes her. After committing the act, the Joker goons then strip her naked, take pictures, and later on, force her father to look at those photos. It's a gruesome sexual assault, and critics of Moore and Moore himself have said that the move felt vacant and inconsiderate. Barbara Gordon's life-changing ordeal was just a plot device to further the Batman story. What happened to the Barbara is part of the Women in Refrigerators tropes. More on that in a few minutes, where female heroes and love interests are maimed, depowered, or crippled in order to teach the men lessons. Now, Barbara's paralysis was accepted as DC canon. While paralyzed, she becomes a hero herself named Oracle, making her ordeal that could never be forgotten. But the movie adds a layer to this. There, Barbara's gross sexual assault is still part of the story, but Barbara's relationship with Bruce Wayne, Batman, is one of a sexual nature. Instead of a father-daughter relationship, the two have a complicated sexual relationship that ends with Batman rejecting her. She becomes not just a friend, but a scorned lover, and thus even more a plot point to fuel conflict between Batman and his arch nemesis. Number 6, Lois Lane turns black. In November of 1970, Lois Lane asked Superman the question, "Will you marry me just the way I am?" Add to the background of the story that Lois Lane was no longer white but black, and Superman, a white alien, had a little bit of a puzzled look on his face. Would he marry her now if she was black? Well, during the Silver Age of comics, writers were trying to become more attentive to societal issues in an attempt to be relatable to a new audience. In November of 1970, DC Comics attempted a bridge between the racial gap with its release of Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane number 106, titled I Am Curious Black. This was by Robert Callinger, and with some presumed racial tensions, he wrote this story about empathy. But in my opinion, transforming Lois Lane into a black woman, yes, black woman, is mildly racist and cringy. And I think it also takes a lot more than 24 hours to understand a different person's point of view. After Superman him-hawing, though, Lois turns herself back and it's never spoken of again. Probably a good lesson. Number 5, Death in the Family. Before the existence of social media, how did the comic book industry make sure that fans' voices were heard? In 1988, the 4-issue arc, A Death in the Family, gave fans the power to decide if Robin, aka Jason Todd, would live or die. In spoilers, they chose the latter, with 1,614 votes tallied in a slim 72-vote difference. Jason Todd was declared dead by fans and carried out by DC writer Jim Starlin and artist Jim Aparo. But even before the voting started, most of the creative team behind the Death in the Family knew that Jason Todd would be killed. Most of the fans were unhappy with the second Robin replacing Dick Grayson, who had moved on and was now Nightwing, and looked at Jason Todd as a disagreeable little snot, but that snot eventually would return to take up the mantle of Red Hood. Number 4, women in refrigerators. Fridging is a term used in cultural criticism, primarily in regards to comic books, to describe the act of killing, harming, or incapacitating female characters for the purpose of motivating the plot. The term references an issue of Green Lantern in which the character's girlfriend was killed off and stuffed into a refrigerator as a plot device. Cultural critics use this term to examine why the plot device has been disproportionately associated with female characters. The concept of fridging was coined actually by Gail Simone, who launched a website, Women in Refrigerators, in March of 1999. The site hosts a list of comic book female characters that have been killed, raped, devoured, crippled, turned evil, maimed, tortured, or contracted a disease and have life-derailing tragedies befall her. The name of the site references that moment in Green Lantern number 54, published in 1994. In the comic, Green Lantern's girlfriend, Alexandria DeWitt, had been killed and stuffed in a refrigerator. Number 3, Bill Finger vs. Bob Kane. Artist Bob Kane, despite receiving sole credit and payment as creator, wasn't the only person responsible for Bruce Wayne. Writer Bill Finger had invented most of the crime fighter's coolest stuff, including his Batmobile and the Batcave. The controversy and conflict lasted nearly 75 years, but in 2015, DC Comics and Warner Brothers finally agreed to grant Finger co-creator status. Bill Finger created a legend and died penniless and forgotten, and now Bill Finger's heir finally have righted this wrong. And if you ever wish to look into this injustice a little bit more, definitely check out Hulu original documentary called Batman and Bill. It also shines a line on injustices in the Golden Age and Silver Age in comic book publishing, in which many other brilliant creators were shafted. But most of all, it makes you look at Batman in a little bit of a different way. Number 2, Seduction of the Innocent. In 1954, with an ever-growing eye on the comic book industry, Frederick Wertham published the most influential book to ever be published in comic book history. His book, Seduction of the Innocent, caused a ripple so large that it's still felt today. It covered many topics, most notably, though, that Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson were homosexual, the blatant S&M on display in Wonder Woman, and that reading comic books may lead to impaired reading abilities. And from it, the Comic Code Authority was born. To slow the growing concern of the content, the Comic Code Authority created a set of rules and guidelines that the comic publishers would have to live by. And to show that the books were being published did exactly this, the group created a little logo that's kind of gone hand in hand with comics up until not that long ago, right? At the right-hand corner of each book. Now let's get to number 1. Number 1, rape. Yeah, we need to talk about this. There are a few times we see it hinted at, such as in The Killing Joke, or there was an assault attempt, such with the original Silk Spectre in Watchmen, or even we're told about what happened, like in The Blackest Night, Tales from the Corps, number 2, when we learned that Bleeze was gang raped in order to become a Red Lantern, or when Tarantula drugs and raped Nightwing. There's plenty more, but quite possibly the worst is in Identity Crisis. One of DC's most disturbing moments started with Identity Crisis and deals with the death of Sue Dibney, wife of Ralph Dibny, who is the elongated man, who was horrifically killed and her body burned. While that was disturbing in and of itself, a handful of heroes immediately suspect Dr. Light, a lightweight villain primarily known as going up against the Teen Titans. Well, why? Because as it turns out, the villain once brutally raped Sue Dibny within the seemingly safe Justice League satellite base. She was the only one there at the time, and when the heroes arrived, it was too late to prevent Dr. Light from violating her. When they finally did show up, though, things took a turn for the weird. Dr. Light threatened to find all of the heroes' loved ones and rape them also. And it was his twisted way of getting revenge on those who had wronged him. Since he was clearly capable of carrying out this threat, the heroes made a controversial decision to have the magical Zatanna partially lobotomize him. Some were against it, such as Batman, but in doing so, it messed with some of his other psyche and made him go from a villain that could cause all of this chaos to one that can't even take on the Titans. And he's been forever changed since, and so have most of the other characters. That was a massive list. There is so much going through DC's history that is absolutely fascinating. But I wanted to make sure I include the obvious, the glaring obvious ones. I would say I should have probably included Arsenal also, but I think most people know about that one. I wanted to go a little different with this one. So let me know, of course, what you guys think about this. I love looking into these kind of things. I find it very interesting to learn about a time when I wasn't here, but people still love these characters. They're older than me, they're older than you, and they're still so beloved. So let me know, of course, what you guys think about this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Hey guys, I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon and subscribe stars. You guys literally make this channel possible. Huge thank you to Cage the Mick, Robert Mick Twiz, Black Knight Fool, Brucey, Chris Z, David L, David Rafford, Jeffrey Allen Carnes, Mighty Balls, Mike Buckner, Maizen Barbosa, Ruskar, Ryan Decker, Robert Hoffman, and Doc Holliday. You guys are absolutely amazing, and thank you so much for all your support. Don't forget on the way out to like as always if you enjoy the content and hit subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.